Tagwan. Yo,
Yo,
what's happening, bro?
how's it going, sir?
Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. There we go. Let's try and get. Ugh! It's a little bit. It's a little bit lighter in your room. It's a bit too light in this room, so let's try and drown the
Background
light
light.
out. How are you? It's good to see you.
Got a wee cut on my lip there. I just realised.
As you can see, I'm growing my tash here.
Yeah, it's looking good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I did it for Movember, raised some money, and then I thought, you know what? Let's just keep going.
To be honest, actually, I think the first time I really grew mine out was laziness.
I mean, that's kind of it, isn't it? I think it's partly down to that. Just kind of, yeah, I think part of it. 1 second, let me just let the dog out. Come on, out, bite. Yeah, man. Just thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's all good, man.
You know, I've known Reese I've known you for, I want to say about closer to 2 years.
Yeah, I think was that. I'm trying to remember when. I think when we met, it was just when I started working at Route One. It was at the start of the year. I remember that,
Yeah.
and I think Brad had moved up here like the September the year before that. So it must be coming up for nearly 2 years.
Yeah. So yeah, and just yeah, man. You know, I just obviously like coming up to Edinburgh because of Lucy being from Edinburgh, sort of traveling back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, gave me an opportunity just to kind of check out, you know, Edinburgh, you know, the people of Edinburgh, and then like meeting yourself, meeting Brad, and just kind of meeting a lot of the locals. You know, really like it was a very warming feeling. You've always made me feel very welcome.
Thanks, bro.
Great energy, great ethos, you know, a lot of compassion and kindness, and just a very good outlook considering the world we all live in right now. It's just nice to see people with, I don't just want to say positivity because that word gets overused, but I think in an outlook where you look beyond your own self, you know.
Yeah, I think to be honest, like, but now specifically, I think it's on purpose because like everyone's just going through so much stuff, and I'm honestly at this. I'm on the side now of being like, look, I don't know what's happening. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist. I'm not a politician. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who to believe. But in my head, it's like, look, I'd rather just be safe than sorry. And at the end of the day, it's like, if everyone is going to be stuck in their house doing stuff, we might as well give them something to watch and something to do and something to interact with. And the thing is, as well, is like, I know the kind of like community I grew up in, like, we're not really big for putting stuff online. Like, people only like try to get on camera on that a lot. But so for me, it's not really been something I'd thought about. But for a long time, I've been thinking about doing this podcast. And then when I actually started doing it and started getting on camera, I was like, actually, this is pretty class. Really.
Definitely. I've seen, I mean, like, guys, by the way, if you don't, please do give. So this podcast is called
Fubu's Future.
Yeah. So please, guys, if you haven't already, give it some love. You know, I think like, and it's not just trying to like plug what you're doing, but I think it's more plugging genuine people because I think we live in a very disingenuous world at times. There's a couple of people who I know quite well. Chris Foster, really caring, compassionate guy. You know, has a lot of love and compassion. Suffers with disabilities. You know, but is not a statistic. You know, and he started something called Open Book, which is about, you know, people with disabilities and showing their empowerment and that everybody should have a level playing field.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we live in such a disingenuous world, and I think unfortunately a lot of people are out for themselves. They're out for how much they can get, and I think a bit like you, we both struggle or have struggled or do struggle with mental health, and you know, that
we
only
need genuine
makes
people.
Yeah?
We need genuine people.
We need genuine people.
Like the thing is as well, like I understand like some people are just kind of living their life and they're just going out and they're making whatever it is they're doing and they're making some money, and like, you know, some people are literally just all right. And it doesn't mean they're no suffering in the background, but on the surface they're not going to show you that. And when it's someone who is suffering and trying to get better, or trying to continue to look after yourself after having gone through stuff, you need to have genuine people in your life. And you need to have genuine role models, and you need to have genuine people that are, you know, that are your entertainment, to be honest.
Yeah. I think, you know, we all need a certain tribe. I think we all belong to certain tribes, and Lucy was saying earlier, you know, like, you know, it's important to find your tribe. You know, and I think it's important. I don't be wrong. I don't want to be around people that are all just like me, but I do feel it's important to be around people which are just real. You know, even if you disagree, right? Just say it how it is. Just say it how it is, man.
Do you know, like, so I think was it last week or the week before, I did a live chat with my friend Miles.
All right.
It was about our idols, and what we decided was that we didn't really have an idol. Our idol was hip hop. Because hip hop was kind of this whole thing of like, the whole point was like, it's real as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, we're going to rap about what's happening right now, right here, round about us.
Yeah.
And it, like, for me, that really was like the thing that when I seen people rapping, I was like, whoa, right, okay, cool. So people are just talking about the shit that's happening around them, and that is like interesting to people, and it's like enlightening.
For sure.
And so I think the same thing needs to happen here. Like, I think the same thing needs to happen across. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening in London already, because obviously there's a lot, there's a big hip hop background and stuff there. But obviously, because it's just such a big place as well. But in Edinburgh and in Scotland, like, people just aren't. There just isn't a lot of Scottish role models that I would look up to, really, when I was growing up. Like, all my role models were like American and like really expressive, creative people, and they just weren't here when I was growing up. So I'm like, I feel like part of this podcast is to kind of give those young people something to watch, and then at the same time, it's like they get to come on, they get to see some boys fucking about, blah blah, and having a laugh. But at the same time, it's like we're getting to talk about the stuff we want to talk about now.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, we can talk about mental health, we can talk about our music, we can talk about art, we can talk about social media, we can do whatever the fuck we want. And like, I think that's what it's all about. It's just like, just be genuine and talk about what's going on in life. For sure. And very high stuff. They're just so babied up here.
I definitely agree, man. No, I think you know, I think you know, like, this things are so tough, man. We're all, look, you know, like, and here's another thing, as men, before I start talking a little bit about color therapy, as men, I think, like, we don't understand the art of conversation. We don't understand how to really communicate. Like, a lot of times,
it's really hard when you've been unwell with like anxiety and depression and stuff. Conversations and all that kind of stuff get really difficult. It's like you have to relearn. But you know, to be honest though, I feel like almost like after all that though, we're at an advantage, because once you kind of like, when I got really depressed and stuff like that, I couldn't schedule. I didn't know when to eat. I didn't know when to sleep. I didn't know when I couldn't do anything. I couldn't communicate with people. I couldn't feel things. And over the past like kind of 3-4 years, I've had to relearn a lot of this stuff and put a lot more focus on it. And now that it's coming out the other side and I'm doing a little bit better and I'm starting to kind of do work that I enjoy, now I feel like I'm actually a bit further ahead than most people I speak to. Like, especially doing the podcast. Like, the whole reason I kind of started it was because people were telling me that they enjoyed having conversations with me. And I was like, about what? Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, I was just trying to have conversations, but now it's like, actually, we're at an advantage because we'll sit and have this conversation. Do you know what I mean? Like, men will not sit and have conversations about mental health a lot. And the fact that we will puts us at an advantage to those other people, to be honest.
I think, it's still I'm going to move myself slightly across, only because the light is really irritating. So please excuse. And I'm not trying to have shoes behind me. It's only because I'd rather not have this glare. So
get the backdrop in there.
I think, like, you know, I don't know about you, but how many times have you either spoken to somebody and said, "You're right, yeah, I'm fine, yeah," like to another guy, where like, and it's like, you know, it ain't the case. Yeah, you know what? Let me close the blind. Go on. You know that. Excuse me.
That's all good.
Hasn't really done too much difference. There we go. Kind of. You know, now it just looks like my face is darker. Guys, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Nah, it's fine, man.
So unprofessional, isn't it? You know, you know that there is something wrong, but like, because we don't really want to talk, because it's one, we're told it's better to keep internalize things. Two, you feel a sense of like, why am I going to burden somebody else? And then the other thing is that half the time when you tell, unfortunately, another male friend, a lot of the time, it's kind of like you'll just try and turn it into banter, or like, let's just have a can, let's just let's get smashed. And it's like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea.
Man, I got fucking drunk again last night. Inside, both me and you don't like that fact. And so we're going to laugh about it right now. Man, see up here as well, like, sarcasm around about where I've grown up has just been like, everything is hidden behind sarcasm. Like, everything. It's unreal. And it's so blatantly aware to me now when I'm in conversations now and I'm like, I feel it. I feel this, like, when someone's like, oh, how are you? I'm like, I feel this, like, I want to automatically regurgitate the words. I'm good and blah, blah. And, to some extent for dealing with mental health, I think, like, that is part of it, is being able to kind of like, look, I'm fine. Everything's good. Let's just be like, no, I am fine. I am cool. And like move the conversation forward. Like that is a thing. But when you're feeling bad, I think what it is men don't do is, sorry, I need to keep it down a wee bit. I might need to move my room actually. My flatmate's having an interview next door, so.
Okay.
For uni. What was I saying again? Sorry, that was distracting.
You was basically speaking about like when men basically talk about things, and a lot of the time it's just like
hiding it behind humor and sarcasm.
And using kind of sarcasm, and obviously that's a thing very much in Scotland.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, now it's like, I think what it is when a man doesn't feel good, they won't tell someone. That's what it really is. It's every single conversation. Whenever anyone asks you how you're doing, unless it's your partner, you're fine.
Yeah. And then the other thing, have you noticed that? I mean, like the weird thing is that men a lot of the time feel like more comfortable to talk to a woman than a man. Now,
for sure.
But isn't that kind of concerning in its own right? That because there's obviously the sense that overall women are more empathetic, have a bit more empathy and care and less like judgment. That why can we not talk to men? Why can we not talk to our fellow brother about this?
Yeah.
When sometimes, especially if it's an issue that impacts men more, shouldn't we be talking to another man? Because they're going to understand it more.
It's so strange, eh? And the thing is, like, I think it is changing a little bit now. Like, I'm starting to get into routine of like opening up to male friends and stuff. And I think, I don't know if, I mean, me specifically, because the whole reason I'm doing this and stuff is because I can't. Like, we're sitting having a conversation right now. So, we're already, that's one step ahead. I think what it is, it's like, I don't think men are particularly emotionally comforting people, right? We've got like a small amount and we can, like, we save it for like family and partner. And like, that's it.
The most emotional that men get.
Infinitesimal amounts of it, right? And and I'm just trying to think how to put this into words. When I'm fine and people around me aren't, whether they're male or female, it's extremely hard for me to comfort them.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, because when you're a man, once you get on your level, it's like you don't want to budge. You don't want someone to bring you down off your level and stuff like that. And so you kind of, it's a really hard thing to put into words, you know what I mean? I think what it is like, because we find it really hard to emotionally support other people, we find it really hard to then go and get just emotional support.
Yeah,
when we're feeling shit, it's very hard for a guy to be like, I just need a hug.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas like a woman will just be like, I just need a hug.
Yeah.
And then you just go like, there's certain kinds of emotional support that guys just, I think, need to learn a bit more about. But part of me thinks it's a deeper level in this. I don't really know much about the science, especially because like the doctors and stuff weren't particularly helpful in my recovery. I had to do a lot of it myself. There is things I think I've missed out on and not learned. And I think one of those things is like that there is this kind of like different kind of support you need that isn't just having a conversation. It's literally just like you need someone to hold you and have an actual, and like just hug you and that's your release. And the thing is, like, I've had that in the past with partners, but like I said, only with partners. I never had it with I barely had it with close friends. And me particularly, as someone who's quite introverted, I have quite a small, close circle of friends. And even then, you know, they're no snuggling up to me on the couch and stuff. Do you know what I mean?
I think I think also like, especially British culture, you know, culture within the United Kingdom.
It's old, man.
It's very awkward. We're not, certain cultures and certain ethnicities, family and tribes and togetherness is so much more inbuilt from a young age. But I find that British culture is quite like a reserve emotion, you know, even hugging and that, you know, and I think right now what we're all going through, you know, is that we have this sense of not being attached. And I feel like, we need to feel a sense of closeness. And that doesn't mean it has to be sexual closeness, but we all need a sense of closeness with somebody, because you know, it is so damaging. And I think for men, it's like, what is wrong with hugging another man when it's like it's someone you know and you're embracing them because they are upset? What's wrong with that?
There shouldn't be anything wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. But and we're getting better, but there's still too many men dying. Too many men dying because I want to put this out there. You should only speak about things that are, as a man, nobody should force you to speak, but we should make an environment where it's acceptable to speak and it's normal. If you still don't feel comfortable, that's fine. But there should be an environment. We should make it so that it's normal.
Yeah. That's why I like this. It's why I like Clubhouse as well. Like Clubhouse has got a lot going on there, dealing with mental health for men and stuff as well, which is crazy. Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think, do you know what it is? I always think about it like this. In the past, like, emotion does affect a conversation. It affects work, right? Sometimes I actually know what it's like to like, look, I don't want to bring emotion into this. Like when an argument starts to happen or when there's a disagreement, once you add emotion, it becomes a fight. You know what I mean? It no longer becomes a conversation, it becomes a fight. And so from a mindfulness perspective, there is a certain level of like, if you can control your emotions in the present moment when you're doing something, whether that's like good or bad, you'll be able to think a lot more clearly about it. Emotions fog your thoughts, I think. When your emotions get crazy high, your thoughts get fogged. At least it does for me. I mean, think about when someone gets angry and you start shouting all that stuff, and then an hour later you start apologizing for it. Do you know what I mean? Why are you apologizing for stuff you said? Because you didn't say them. Your emotions said those words.
I think, like, for myself, like with depression and through anxiety, my anxiety spikes in a sense that I so internalize within myself, but I'm still around in the outside. So outwardly, I'm around and people are seeing me and I'm talking, but it's like I feel like a tortoise going inside my shell.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it is all my receptors, all my feelers. I feel so tense. I feel everything, you know, but I think for myself, like my emotions and I don't know about you, but I find that for me, I feel like it's disabling me from doing what I want to do. Do you know what I mean? And I think then again, as men, sometimes we're also almost being told less. It's getting better. I will say that it's almost like we're being disabled from just being the way we should be, which should be no different than women.
Yeah, exactly.
There shouldn't be women, as my friend Nick just said here. You know, he said, I'm sure if you're reading it, I feel though that women have always been okay to talk about things and be deemed, it's being deemed as normal. But for men, you're just told to man up and be strong. And we're told that from young. I mean, some men not, you know, it just depends on your childhood. But even what I was saying to someone earlier, boys, you got to love blue. Blue's got to be your favorite color. You got to like action, man. And like, you know, cars and trucks. No, put that doll down. That's for girls, you know. And it's like, but the skill sets there, for instance, for like, let's say a boy's got a doll, what that's teaching that kid is care, compassion, and empathy, and nurture. So we're basically saying, don't be nurturing as a man, and that's just crazy to me.
Except for your family.
Yeah, but or if there's a big sporting event. Have you ever noticed that men are very good at hugging each other? if there's a massive sporting event.
Yeah.
And it's
Once
like
you get once you
suddenly,
get a few drinks in you as well, it's a lot easier.
suddenly it's all right. It's like, yeah, come here, oi. And it's like, wait a minute, why couldn't you be like that like half an hour earlier? You know,
I know it's funny. Like I've made. I'll go back to what I was going to say real quickly. I was going to say that I think, I mean, it's very hard to consider us, right? Because we're human beings alive in 2021, right? Our ancestors did all the colonization, and we've been around the world. There's been wars and battles, and countries popping up everywhere and stuff. Like, we're in 2021, and I think people would really think about the fact that like we're part of that human evolution. Like we are part of this endless thing. And at one point in the British culture, like I remember when I was younger, someone saying to me like, it might even be my great granddad saying something to me like, "Oh, if you're going to be sad, just be sad with your family," or something like that. It's like your emotions are reserved for your wife and kids, and even then, it's like the only person you can ever really be fully yourself around is your partner, and even your kids, you have to kind of have bravado because you're trying to be strong for them. Which I get. Obviously, you want to be strong for the young people and stuff, but I don't think that we should be hiding anything from them at all. I don't think we should be hiding anything from our kids, whether you're a male or female. I don't think we should be hiding anything from anyone.
Yeah.
I think everything needs to get out in the open, for sure. And I think that's part of this thing is like, in the past when men went to work, the whole point was that we weren't bringing emotions to work. Do you know what I mean? Emotions were kept at home. And they have that mentality in China now. It's a very popular mentality in China of people leaving their emotions and stuff for their family life. But I think what happens then is that if you're not paying attention to those emotions and actually working through them, then there's a problem. And here, our families are comforting, but we don't able to work through problems.
Yeah.
That's the real. I think that's a big issue. It's the fact that like, look, I can reserve my emotions all day and have fun and interact with people and blah blah blah, and then I'm trying to think. When I was living with my mum and stuff like that, for example, I could go to my mum and be like, "Oh, I'm this," and she maybe give me a quick hug or whatever, but she's not going to tell me why I'm feeling like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I had a partner, it was a lot easier to tell her, like, to just cry and cuddle up and be like, I feel like shit. And that happened to me a few times when I was with one of my partners, like specifically where I was in a horrible place. And it was fine to tell her that. I didn't feel embarrassed telling her that, but I wouldn't have left the room and told anyone else.
Yeah. I mean,
Really
I think.
strange.
Do you think?
Sorry.
Do you think it should? Okay. So, do you feel like we should be open with everybody? As in, do you think it's still important to have not boundaries, but know who you're choosing, or do you think who we are and how we are should be the same with whoever we are? What do you think?
Well, yes, but this comes down to a different idea of like what is like who are you, right? People have this idea that like they don't want to go to work and pretend to be someone else, and they don't want to go here and pretend to be someone else and go there. So you're not really pretending to be anyone. You are just being you. You're just being certain aspects of you for certain situations. So if you're in a retail environment and you're working for that retail environment, you have to abide by the rules of that retail environment. That doesn't mean you're not being yourself. It just means you're providing the service that whoever's created that environment wants their customers to have. And that's a very good example where sometimes a lot of people don't feel like themselves when they get into their work environment, but the reality is you are still yourself. It's just that you're not getting to deal with the stuff that you think you need to be dealing with. Okay. And you're having to put on this facade for everyone else. Like, as right now, getting into a business, I understand what that's like to be like on the camera, having to kind of, let my character out a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas when I'm in the house, like my character's not just running about the house. I'm really reserved. I sit on the couch, I sit on my laptop, I do my work. I'm quite quiet. I'm very rarely pure buzzing about my house because when I'm in the house, it's like that's my downtime. So it does fluctuate like that. So I think what I think we need to really focus on, I think, is community and support and stuff like that. Because the reality is, I can't be myself with every single person, right? And I don't want to, because the reality is, like, I'm still in a recovery position, so I'm still a little bit, I think, lower in mentality than a lot of people sometimes. And so I don't want to be myself. Like, sometimes I do want to be able to go out, forget about it. And when you do that, it does help. Like, once you actually start to be like, look, I've got depression, I've got anxiety, this is what I'm doing to treat them, and it's working. Once you realize it's working, then you start to realize, like, okay, right, cool. So now I can go outside, interact with people like like as normal as I can and just as natural as I can, interact with those people, and then what's it called? Ugh, my mind's such a mess. I get so lost today for some reason.
You're
Because I've been
doing
off the
amazing.
weed for
Nah,
a few days.
you're doing great. I'm really it's thank you so much. I'm really enjoying this. And
Yeah,
you know what? We've got 9 people listening as well, so
yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Do you want to talk a little bit about colour then? Let's just move on.
Yeah, if that's
I'm saying for any guys listening just now, what I'm saying is like, look, if you're dealing with your mental health, you want to go and don't be worried about not telling people that. I think if you focus on community and build yourself a little circle, whether that's online, whether that's one friend, as long as there's someone that you can speak to when you feel it at your worst, at that time, when you're feeling bad, it might not solve the problem right there and then. But the next again day, when you start to lift yourself out of it, then you'll remember all the people who were there messaging you the day before. It happened to me the other day where I felt really bad, put a thing on Instagram, lots of people replied and sent me messages. And then at the time I was like, oh, cool, thanks, you know, because everyone's been like, oh, cheer up, mate, do this, blah, blah, blah. And they're just trying. These people are actually trying. Do you know what I mean? It's like they maybe not saying the thing that's going to pull you out, but they're trying. And when I woke up the next again day and I felt a bit better, it was so obvious how many people were there and actually cared about me. And I was like, shit. And then, like, you know, then your mood just goes jumping straight back up again. So yeah, let's move on to a bit of colour. So what have you been doing work with colour-wise then?
So for myself, colour.
Do you want to tell people a little bit about who you're first, really quickly, before?
Hi. So hi guys. For the ones that don't know me, my name is Micheal. No, on Instagram handle is Smostertag. I am 35 years old. I live just outside of London in Kent. I
like sneaks.
I like footwear. I like elements of fashion, and I am obsessed with color. Why for me is color so important? Well, for the last few weeks, I've been doing something called Colorful Tuesdays. I named it that because I do it on a Tuesday. It's a post that I do, and it's basically all about color, embracing color, understanding the importance of color and how it can change perception, emotion, you know, and environment. And how I mean that is quite simply this. You wake up in the morning, you open your blinds or your curtains, you look out the window, you see that it's draining. You see it raining, you see that it's raining, you see it's gray, yeah, depressing. It automatically can have an impact on your entire way of being, your productivity, you know, what you want to do. You know, why do you think that certain animals hibernate other than they store food? You know, it affects everything, you know, the weather and color. You know, you look at the blue sky, the sun, it changes your entire way of feeling and being. You feel more productive, you feel happier. Internally, you almost feel like this sense of like joy, you know. So how does that transfer onto what you wear? Well, I truly believe that some colors impact us in different ways. You know, blue is commonly known to speak about serenity, wisdom, calmness. You can understand that because of the ocean, you know, and how when you look at the ocean and when you look at waves, you know, there is a sense of calmness and serenity, you know. Other colors, pink speaks a lot about joy, love, compassion, empathy. You know, these are sometimes, you know, but a lot of the time certain colors have certain construct, like they're like almost like reserved. No, maybe that's more of a feminine color. Maybe you shouldn't wear that. Why? You know, you look a bit girlish. What's girl?
Some of them are built around our social constructs, the colours. Like, you know, the idea of blue and pink being male and feminine, like that's actually a reasonably new thing. Do you know what I mean? Because I seem to remember when they first started initially creating dyes to dye clothes, pink was really popular for guys when it first came out. I also remember seeing this picture of Teddy Roosevelt wearing a skirt, because in America, in the early American days, all kids up to the age of 13 wore a skirt and like a blouse thing and never cut their hair. They all had long hair, skirt, and pretty much everyone looked non-gender.
Yeah.
Until they were 13.
Well, I think, yeah, pink. I mean, pink went through a phase though, Chris. I think like pink is a color for anybody. First of all, I don't think it's was a man's. I think pink is a color for everyone. Every color.
Can I say something real quick? Colors affect us on a like biological level.
Yes.
but they also are part of our social construct. So what I'm talking about with pink being for boys and girls and stuff, that's the social construct side of it.
Yes.
The idea of pink being an emotional color that evokes certain kinds of emotions, and blue evokes, that's a biological thing. So I just want to separate those two so people are aware.
No, yeah, pink was seen as a rich color as the dyes were scarce.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I hear that, Nick. No, I think that's what people don't understand. We live in such a dark time right now. People are distressed. People are unsure what is happening. It's the shittest time of the year anyway. January, February, March. The weather is shit.
Up here, man.
Right?
I'm fucking freezing my ass off.
Crap, right? You know, you look at social media a lot of the time, and I just like to put this out here. If you're into colors like beige, cream, white, black and white, nothing wrong with that. I have nothing against, you know, it's not
They're
about
quite calm.
But I think
calm colors.
Yeah, but sometimes I feel like for men, when it comes to wearing color, and I've been looking aimlessly online, trying to find more male people who are into color on social media, and you don't really see it. You know, I have found hardly any. And reason I find color so therapeutic, and it is a form of therapy, is because it almost changes my being. It just changes my emotion, how I feel, you know. And I think if I put on something nice and bright and, like, you know, pop of orange, or I look at myself in the mirror and I actually feel happy. Now, I'm not saying it's a happiness that's long lasting, but it's these little quick bursts of happiness that can change.
Yeah.
You know, a bit like the other day, you was in a bad place. People messaged you. It didn't mean that automatically everything's fine, but it was a burst. It also manifested itself. So sometimes color the same way. You wear something, it changes your emotion. And this is not me saying this. There is scientific proof if you want to. You know, there's also a program on Netflix called Abstract, The Art of Design. And I think one of the first episodes very much speaks about.
I remember that show,
color.
actually.
Please, if you haven't, definitely watch it, because this artist really explains color in such detail, and scientifically, it kind of blows your mind.
Yeah.
So, like, I know what
Is this Paul Scher?
No, he's a German. So I think he's originally from. He lived in Iceland, but I think he's German. He lives in Berlin.
I know the guy you mean, yeah.
But definitely Abstract, The Art of Design. It's on Netflix. If you haven't already, definitely, you know, it's a good way for someone to explain color in more depth than maybe I am.
And design and stuff in general. Because like the thing is, like, I think one of the things that's important is, like, I think in this situation, color is the thing that I think you found, if you put your focus on, it's something that really, like, reverberates with you. If you can focus on the color and stuff. But the thing is, like, you obviously think about color, but you obviously still think about the combinations of color. And like when you wear certain kinds of clothes, I mean, I say to people, like, I'm not really a guy, like, I'm not going to go to a meeting wearing a suit. Like, if you don't like the way I'm dressed, I'm not going to that meeting. But when I put a suit on, I feel a certain way.
Yeah.
I feel the bravado come. I feel smart. I feel clean. I feel sharp.
Yeah.
You know. But the same feelings can happen when I put on a really nice combination of streetwear clothes. You know what I mean? Yeah. You feel that same kind of swag. You feel like clean and fresh.
Exactly. And I think, you know, as I said, a lot of the time, I think, especially because women have always overall been very comfortable and confident in wearing some type of color. And I think well, I've had a couple of conversations with people, and I think something I hear a lot is it pulls too much attention to me. I don't really want that kind of attention on me. Like, and then the other part is, but I don't really know how to wear color. I'd rather stay in my safe zone, which is certain colors that I know I can combine with ease. And
I call these basic colors. No offense to anyone who's basic.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I just call it. People don't want to be in the limelight. When you don't want to be in the limelight, you wear dull, uncontrasting colors because you don't want people to look at you.
I do want to point out here, I really don't mean that in a negative. You should like what you should like. You should like what you like.
I'm joking.
I don't want people to be like, "What? Who are you?"
I'm joking. You have to have a laugh about it sometimes as well. You know, I think that's what I will definitely keep. I need to remind myself of that sometimes. Like, sometimes you just need to, like, you know, See, someone's probably suffering with that combination of clothing and color, but other people are just like, shut up, cunt. I want those. I keep telling people, like, I want the haters in the DMs. Like, I can't wait for them to rock up. Tell where to go.
But no, I think color, you know, and I have therapy every Wednesday. You know, and I think something I actually try and do, which sounds really weird because I'm indoors, but like, because I know I'm going to have a therapy session, which is, you know, it's going to invoke certain emotions and dig certain things up. I'm preparing myself. So usually I wear very loud colors, specifically because I want to set myself up in the best emotional state I can prior, you know, so giving me that pop of color and being able to express myself through color, and it allowing me to feel this emotion that maybe I didn't feel even before I put that color on. Just sets me up in a way where I feel a little bit better about what is about to happen, you know.
Sure.
You know,
I find sometimes, like, see, for example, like an interview. You want to go on an interview looking absolutely amazing, because an interview can be stressful, it can make you anxious and all the rest of it. And what you want to be able to do is the way you're dressed and the way you feel before you go in, that's like your little base. And so whenever that interview knocks you down, it's like, if you're bright and loud, it's easier to get sucked back up real quick. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As soon as you leave and you realise that you look swaggy as fuck, you're like, that was class.
Yeah.
And it's such a good, like, way to bring you up. Like, colours I find so interesting because obviously when you look at British culture in the past, like suits and dresses, they weren't overly colourful. Do you know what I mean? And for me, the colour in my life now has come from, again, probably African Americans and African people utilising colour in ways to actually to influence themselves in that expressive way, because the British culture of the past wasn't an expressive culture. It was a dominating culture. Do you know what I mean? It had to all be the same. It's like we are wearing a uniform. We're not wearing colours and expressing ourselves.
No,
we're wearing bland uniform that looks clean so people can respect us, but it's bland because we're not here to express ourselves. We're here to take over the fucking world.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's very true. It's a very good way to look at it.
I uniform. Think, we don't. Our uniform. I think the modern day uniform is the way that we're doing it now with streetwear and sustainable clothing and all these things. Like, I think that is the modern day look, the modern day group of people.
Streetwear really, I think for me, when I think of streetwear was something that, you know, it came from a very personal place. You know, it was influenced by music, it was influenced by peers, and it was influenced for the cultures around it.
Yeah, street culture,
You know, and I think, like, streetwear, you know, like what we wore was a form of expression. And I think a form of expression, because now I find more and more, it's almost becoming uniformed again. We've gone from like the 80s and 90s where there was a rebellion, there was an individuality, where I think now a lot of the mainstream stuff that you see, and I guess that's why it's called mainstream, becomes very uniformed. And you know, you look at Instagram a lot of the time, and you look at the people that are influential in the fashion world, and they have a specific look, and it becomes very one-dimensional, which is quite weird for me, because I almost feel like you're losing your identity, because you're just like every other Tom, Dick, and Harry. And
I think it's like actors. You know, when actors do like one film, and then all of a sudden it's like that's their niche, and they can't
because that's all they could. Yeah, like Harry Potter.
Basically, Daniel Radcliffe personalities sometimes.
Like Daniel Radcliffe did Harry Potter, and after that, that's all people knew him as. So he basically was like really hard to remove himself.
And he went way to the other end. Like, he was on stage getting naked, singing about AIDS. Like, he was really trying.
He was still just like, yeah, that's Harry Potter.
But when I see Daniel Radcliffe in a film now, do you know what? Because the Harry Potter was a little while ago, I actually seen an advert for him in a film yesterday, and it is a bit easier now for me to forget the Harry Potter side.
Yeah, I think.
But in his case, for a long time, it was that thing of being like, when you get stuck in a niche. I mean, I think another one for me is like, you wouldn't think about it, but Leonardo DiCaprio, even though he's quite a diverse actor, the way that he goes around doing his method acting and the roles that he plays are always extreme characters.
Yeah,
they're always the most extreme characters, and that's actually one of his fortes. Like, you know, you couldn't see him playing a secondary role.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
No.
It doesn't really feel the same. And the same
thing. He's a primary character. He's a primary.
Yeah,
character.
when it comes to clothing and dress now, I understand that the kind of streetwear and the culture and stuff that's starting to become mainstream and pop culture. But honestly, on some level, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because it's more about what goes through my head now is what young people see. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have it in my head that, like, there are certain people who are individualistic and expressionist, and there are some people who are group mentality, non-expressionist. And those, like, and there's everything in between that all across the globe, and various different cultures, various different countries, various different kinds of people.
Yeah.
And like, it's so vast in reality that I'm like, look, as long as I'm expressing myself in a way that is comfortable and honest, then I'm like, young people might see this, and that's enough for me. Like, here, you know, it's like wearing Air Max and cottons and a North Face jacket. Like, that is like the look.
That's almost like a uniform, isn't it? I
That
mean,
is a wee bit like uniform, and the thing is, like, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with, like, kind of like wearing similar clothes, and that's what pop is, really. But I think the thing is, I personally think that there's more that people need to educate themselves on the two sides to be before they can choose. Like, you might be hanging about with your mates and that now, and you grow up through school and you're in that kind of environment or whatever, and everyone's kind of shopping at the same places and buying the same things or whatever. At least it was here when I was growing up in public schools. But I think kids really should be allowed to express themselves individually for a bit longer,
but it's
and
hard
that they're part of a group, but are still an individual. Because that's what happens, is people get into group mentality and then they forget that they're an individual person. They forget they have individual needs, and that's where problems arise.
It's no different than when you're in a relationship, because when you're in a relationship, you can almost feel like when I left, like, for instance, when I left my previous relationship, I had to refine who I am, you know. And I think it's very important to try and keep being you, keep your individuality. And you just said about group mentality. It's very much like you look at everything that is being done by everybody else around you, and removing yourself. That's quite a frightening concept, especially when
terrifying almost.
Especially when you're, I think when you're still identifying your style and identity, especially when you're like in your mid to late teens. I think, you know, even in your early 20s, you know, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm 35 now, and I would only say that recently am I starting to feel much more comfortable in my own skin and who I am and what I'm about and what I wear, where I really don't care too much what people might say, because
it's more about how you feel about what you're wearing.
It's because if I worried about everything people might say about me, how I sound, how I look, how I dress, I wouldn't be nowhere in life.
Nah.
I'd be 6 foot under, mate, because I would just bury myself, because I'd be like, because, you know, you're always going to have more people say stuff, unfortunately, in life that is negative, especially if overall you start to put yourself out there on social media. Because you got to understand, and I understand, that I'm not here trying to make everybody think the way I think. It's just trying for people to understand there is other ways to look at things too. And, you know, like, fashion it should have no gender, for one. Color should be neutral for both. And, you know, men's mental health shouldn't be put into this box. Like, we all have mental health. The only difference is that a lot of the time still men don't show the support, don't get the support from other men, and men don't get the support from the constructs of the world, you know. And you know, like, yeah, you know, I think I you know, when you see yourself like, oh, where am I going? I'm going too deep. Sorry,
no, that's fine. I think it's like, when it comes to this, I think education is really important. I think that's what it is. Like, look, maybe you don't want to express yourself with color, right? And that's fine, but I think it's something that should be learned about. You don't have to learn about what every single color means or whatever, but I think it's like an awareness. Just start paying more attention. Paying more. Like, for me specifically, coming from a kind of, like, when it comes to mental health, I honestly feel like mindfulness is so underrated, because, like, what mental health does is you get confused, and then the doctors try and kind of look at you from certain perspectives, and you start trying to look at yourself from different perspectives, and you start to learn about psychology and, like, cognitive science and medicine and homeopathic medicines and, like, all these other things, and yoga and mindfulness, and you start to look at, and what you're actually doing is you're just ripping your brain even further apart sometimes. And I think what actually needs to happen is you need to find a way of keeping your mind whole and educating yourself and allowing yourself to like, it's such a hard thing to like naturally just be in that kind of state of like, of fullness in your head.
Yeah.
And it's something because, you know what's been annoying me recently actually, bro, is like, I'm doing a lot better and I don't know what to tell people on how I got here because everyone has a different experience. And so I don't know really what my advice is to give people when I'm like, look, I've went from the bottom to, well, now, I wouldn't quite say I'm at the top, but now I'm doing all right. But I didn't really know how I got here other than just trying and educating myself and doing stuff and figuring it out.
Yeah.
By myself. I feel like what I want to do with this stuff is I want to be able to allow kids to figure it out younger so that they can get a grip, so they can get a grip of their mind sooner, and their self sooner. But I just really don't actually know how to really get that message across to people. It's the thing I like about having a podcast is like, I'm more like, if I get people on the podcast of stuff I'm interested in, it's more about me absorbing what that person's going to tell me about that topic. Do you know what I mean?
But isn't that a form of therapy in itself?
It is.
Because earlier, as I said, isn't the art of conversation something that's so vital and important?
It is. It's like it's all important. Like people to realize, like these are all, like, you're a human being, right? And a human being is just like, you're one animal. You're a device. You only have this one brain, which means everything that comes in and comes out of here has to have come in from somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like light comes in, sound comes in, smell comes in, sensations come into your body, whether that's someone speaking, whether that's someone's clothes, whether that, that all goes in before you can cognate it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you are this one device and you just need to start paying attention to all that stuff that is around you and stop being in that automatic mode whenever you're with people, because that's when you're just going to get yourself into places you don't want to be in. And then when you do get that second to sit by yourself, you'll feel like shit because you're not doing stuff you want to do.
Yeah.
You're just getting sucked along with everyone. And I think, I honestly feel like mindfulness is something I need to figure out more on how to teach people.
Mindfulness is a tough one. I think mindfulness, and also like respecting others around us and their beliefs and views and values. I think I hate the idea of pushing my beliefs and values on somebody else.
Yeah.
I think I can disagree with you, and there's a difference, obviously, if we are being factual, and it's like, this is a fact. It is not me giving
That's
an
why
opinion.
I'm doing the live things now, because I'm like, look, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a human being going through my shit, and I'm just going to put this online. If you want to absorb this information and you find it helpful, then good. But I'm not a scientist. I'm not trying to do you.
No, and I mean, I think seeing different perspectives. So we both are speaking about things. We may look at things in different ways, but that does not mean that we are trying to discredit either one of our opinions. No. And I think that's really important.
I think that's just like, there's like a balance in that to being a human being. Like you're saying, like the art of language and stuff like that. It's like, it's all tools, all of it. Everything that comes in are tools that you can use to interact with the world around you. So the more you start to listen to people speak and shut up, the better you'll get at understanding what it is people are actually saying to each other.
For sure.
Like when I was really depressed, I was anxious, I would quite often be sat at the back of conversations, and that was when I started to realize that most of the words coming out of people's mouths were just bullshit. They didn't mean anything. They're like useless things they're saying. Whereas like when someone is actually being genuine, have a conversation with you, and there's that connection, it's a whole other thing. But at the time I couldn't feel that. I just got this outside perspective. And so now language is one of these things. I'm like, right, okay, so there's a way to do it efficiently. There's a ways to speak to certain people. They're like, and they're tools. I'm not like putting them in a little toolbox and being like, oh, I'm going to this meeting today, I better whip out this tool. Right? Like, you just start to learn. The more you actually try and make an effort to learn about these things and pay attention to the world around you, not just read it, the more you start to pay attention, the more those tools just become ingrained in you.
You know what I mean? It becomes second nature, for sure.
They become a bit second nature, and you start kind of just being able to, notice when you're speaking too much and be quiet, for example. Like being quiet and actually listening to someone speak. That is a skill. One that kids are terrible at these days.
I mean,
that was bad at it.
I mean, yes, I mean, I'm still learning, you know. So I'm like, because I can chat and chat and chat, and I'm like,
Yeah.
relax.
Here, we'll not know it all until we're dead.
Eh?
We won't know it all until we're dead.
But you know, I think like now it's kind of like we live in the social media age, but we've actually become more antisocial because we don't
In a
really know
really
how to talk.
strange way, yeah.
Very weird. Very weird.
But that, I think, do you know what it is? I was watching a video last night and someone said the problem with people today is that they haven't realised that social media is the internet.
Yeah.
Like, people aren't spending time on Google looking for websites and stuff. They're on social media. Like, that is the internet now. And if you're not getting used to using that environment, then you are just going to lose out on social interaction with people, because when you leave the house, especially in a city, that social interaction just dips.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I love about the skate community is the fact that, like, I can go up to Bristol Square or to a skate park, whatever, and there's always going to be someone there who's going to be sound to just sit and have a chat with or whatever. And, like, you know, there's always someone there who'll have an actual conversation with you. It's one of the things I like about Edinburgh specifically is we see right now, bro, we have got, like, honestly, one of the most caring skate scenes, like, I've ever seen.
How is this with obviously the situation nationally with the governments and obviously Nicola Sturgeon, everything's had to be enforced further. But how has that affected? For instance, in my local park, the skate park's been locked off, right? And
Oh, really?
yeah, well, basically, there's still being kids, but now there's police that are patrolling the area, so it's a little bit more. You know, I think it's really tough because I think a lot of kids, because I've been seeing a lot more kids getting into skating and a lot more females getting into skating, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
But I think, like, you know, it is so important, especially when you're like in your teens, like to have an environment you call your own. And I feel like that's being taken away. I mean, how is that in Scotland? How is that in Edinburgh?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure, like I've got a few young people who follow me online and stuff, and they message me, and I try and speak to everybody who messages me, and there are definitely young people struggling who are missing out on this social environment, you know, and there are people dying because they don't have these social environments, and it's a shame because, I mean, think about it, even before COVID, teenagers were still committing suicide. So what is it going to be like now? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And I know that people think that's a bit of an unreal thing to think about, but that's a reality. That's not an unreal thing. That is a reality. Kids are struggling a lot.
Yeah.
Here, in terms of the skate scene anyway, people, because the skate scene has this slight rebellious side, if people aren't feeling good, they're still going outside and meeting people. Do you know what I mean? Because the reality is they can't not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They cannot sit in their house and not meet people.
Yeah.
And for young people, being online, it's not quite the same. I think when you get a bit older and you become a bit more like of an individual, it's you and your partner or you and your flatmates and you and your workmates, and your circles get a bit smaller. There's a lot, your interaction with people online becomes a lot more important as an adult. When you're young, it's like your phone's just a way to connect with your mates, but you want to be in person, really.
Yeah.
And now they kind of do that, and for them, they've not learned this. They've not learned how to connect properly, really, over the phone and help each other. So, I think it's all right here, to be honest. I think in Scotland we have got a lot of problems with mental health anyway, just because it's winter, depression comes and stuff like that, blah blah blah. But in terms of the local scene and the people I know, I think everyone's just being rebellious and going out and seeing their mates.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
Yeah. No, I mean,
and the problem, like, it's such a strange time during this COVID thing. Like, it's almost hard to comment because, like I said, I don't know what's happening. Do you know what I mean? Like, kids are going up to see at this time of year. We usually hang about at Bristol Square, but because it rains and all that kind of stuff, we can very rarely skate there. So around the corner, there's a little undercover spot because we don't have any really indoor skate parks, and even the indoor skate parks we do have, you have to pay for them. But now at this time of year, it gets dark by like 5 o'clock. It's obviously we've passed the shortest day, so it's going up again. But it's dark by 5 o'clock. So kids skating at this spot at 5 o'clock, we're just getting complaints from neighbours, and the police are showing up, especially the police right now because of COVID, and they're trying to keep everyone away. The police are showing up, and the uni's getting involved still, and it's just like it's a lot of hassle for the bairns, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's making me. I'm confident post COVID that working with kids is probably going to be my future.
That sounds awesome.
In this aspect, it will be working with adults. But the reality is like I'm doing this, but it's not really for us. you know, because we're kind of on our journeys already. This is part of our journey. This is for young kids growing up who are going to see it, because we just didn't have I just feel like, especially here in Scotland, I didn't have role models for here growing up. No way. Like, we looked at hip hop, we looked at American stars and actors, and, you know, you look up at all these people as your idols, but they didn't speak like me.
I mean,
it makes a huge difference. Like you were saying, the art of language, one of the reasons I want to do this is because people like to hear stuff in their own voice, their own language, their own way of speaking.
For sure.
Like, I might speak and say some words, I might slur, I might, you know, make up random words. I might say lol, which is an actual word. Wait, that's a word now, actually. What am I saying? But that's how people around here speak. And it doesn't mean I'm unintellectual. It doesn't mean I'm not intelligent. It doesn't mean I'm stupid. No. It just means this is how I like to speak. And I think people here like end up speaking too proper that they lose a part of their expression.
I mean, yeah. And I mean, like, just like, you know, obviously there is a different form of identity down these parts of the UK. Just so there is in Scotland. And I think it's important that, like, Scottish slang, that it is preserved, and that identity isn't mixed where, like, as you said, you used to look at hip hop from the States, but ultimately there was a division because it didn't really sound like me.
No,
you know?
It didn't. Like, the thing is, a lot of what I say a lot of American slang words, a lot of London slang words. Like, I say fam on the daily basis. Do you know what I mean? But, like, it's like, fam is like a word to use in a terminology, and when you learn how to use it in an appropriate setting, it's a fucking amazing good word, because when someone says that to you, like, you instantly feel like, oh, we know each other. If you're saying that to me and I know what you're saying, then we know each other. And, like, there's that kind of feeling. But that doesn't mean, like, that we kind of say it in a Scottish way. Do you know what I mean? I'd be like, yo, what's happening, fam? And, like, and people tell me, like, oh, you sound really Scottish. I'm like, 90% of my vocabulary is not Scottish.
But I think, I mean, obviously, I'm sure that, I mean, I know you're very proud of being Scottish.
For sure.
And
but I'm also proud of being a modern Scot as well, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, we should be able to adapt our language in a modern way. And I think, me specifically, this is one of the things I've definitely focused on, is, like, making sure that I can use these slang, that I can, you know, use certain terminologies when I'm rapping and stuff like that. But as long as I'm saying it and using it in certain ways, I can still be a normal Scottish person. Like, being a Scottish person is a more, like, relaxing into your environment and absorbing the Scotland around you and using that to express yourself. But also in my country, it's like, not also have I got all the Scottish history here, especially in Edinburgh, where it's like we're really big on our history. I'm still got access to all this. I've still got access to the hip hop music. I've still got access to all the culture and all the rest of it, you know. And me specifically, like, I watch foreign films all the time. I watch African films, I watch Asian films, I watch European films, I watch South American films. Like, and I try and pluck from all these different cultures, because I'm like, I'm in Scotland and I have that way of expressing myself, but I'm also a modern day human being with access to information all around the world. I should be allowed to pluck those things and incorporate them into my life. I do the same thing with religions and spiritual ways of thinking, like certain things like gratitude, like take that, stick that in there, because it's a valuable tool.
Yeah. And I think if you kind of, you can have your, I find, like, if you, because that's the thing, is that's like, you know, like, I think a lot of the time, you know, like, the UK, especially England's very much known for, like, in the old days, like, you know, yes, it owned half the world, it was able to colonize everywhere, but it didn't maybe always take in the best way. And it's like, fine, maybe trying to now just make sure as an individual we take things from other cultures, in the sense of we learn things from other cultures, and we take bits to widen our horizon. We can still have
to use it
and appreciate it, but also then when you come across certain social circles, you will feel yourself feeling a lot more comfortable.
For sure.
You know,
like, I know right now, right, that if I went to the States, California, and I walked into a studio with, you know, 10 African American guys who are, you know, big guys, swagged up, ready to get some stuff done, I would fit in there. Because I know I would have the confidence going in. I would not have the nerves going in there. I'm not going to say anything I shouldn't say, because I'm not stupid. I'm just going to be myself.
Then
do you know what I mean? And I know that by being myself, I can go in and be like, yo, what's happening? You know what I mean? And I'll be able to just vibe off the situation, and like,
Yeah.
and I only know that because of how I've grown up and because of what I've absorbed and because of not also the media I've consumed, but also the people I've met in my life. You know, we
Yeah.
live in a country where tourists from all around the world come to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially in Edinburgh.
I was so baffled, bro. I was really baffled because, like, as somebody who's you know, like, who has, like, you know, I'm from, like, Egypt partly originally, so, like, you know, having that kind of ethnic background. And then the first time I came to Scotland, came to Edinburgh specifically, I was just like, wow, it is so diverse.
The diversity is
It's very,
insane.
because I honestly thought to myself, man, it's just, everyone's just going to be like, you know, look a specific way, and you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. But, like, walking along, like, you know, Princess Street, and being along, like, you know, like Bristol Square, and being just around that because Edinburgh is very small, isn't it? I mean, you know this more than I do. Edinburgh is very small, but
people here don't realise that as well until they get a bit older. I'm like, soon you become an adult, boys, right? You'll realise that Edinburgh is the smallest city.
It's tiny. It's great because you can get to A to B very easily without it taking that long. But, like, there's so much diversity, and I found myself actually, wow, like, I found myself feeling so comfortable. I mean, you know, obviously, like, I've been to Edinburgh a lot of times now. I love it up there. I want to make it my home. You know, Lucy and me do want to move back up together.
Yeah.
And I really like it up there because I was taken away just the diversity. Obviously, that because of the university being such a good university and so many international students coming, I think that's amazing, and that's so important because, you know, you just keep learning. You know, just keep learning, because I don't know. I know very, you know, in the grand scheme of things, what do I know? You know what I'm saying? But I'm learning. I want to learn. I want to learn from other cultures and other people.
Sure.
You know, my identity isn't just made of me, of my beliefs. It's made up of everything that I hopefully absorb. And I'm trying to absorb more and more. So, you know, yeah.
It's interesting because I grew up outside of Edinburgh. So if you go like 20, 30 minutes south of Edinburgh, there's a town called Bonnyrigg. It's next to Dalkeith, Woodburn, Mayfield, Newton Grange. Locals will know these names.
Yeah.
Very, very different people to the people in the town. Right? It's very different now. Outside those towns, there is a bit of gentrification happening now as the town kind of expands in that direction. And gentrification is one of these things that I actually think it's really a human behaviour that's just actually really misunderstood. I think what gentrification is it's humans, like, it's groups of human beings jumping up a level. Do you know what I mean? Like, financially, like, socially, like, health-wise, they're kind of jumping up to the next level. And what happens is that leaves the people who are poor and can't afford that, or have been in bad family backgrounds for a long time. They can't do that, and they can't jump up, and that's where that contrast and that's where the gentrification, I think, becomes a bad thing. But outside the town, when I was growing up, when I was younger, everyone looked the same, we all dressed the same, we all spoke the same, everyone did the same stuff, right? And it's like, if you're a guy, you're either going to be an apprentice joiner, an apprentice builder, an apprentice engineer, or a mechanic. There was like no other options. You could go to uni if you wanted, but hardly anyone was doing that. I think in my community specifically, when I was in school, I got to be friends with people who were intelligent and did go to university. And I think when I got to third year high school, that was actually when I first kind of met people and I started paying attention to knowledge a little bit. When I was younger, I didn't care about learning at all. Even when I left high school, I wanted to learn more, but just the learning environment was extremely difficult. But when I moved to the city, it's like the diversity around, it's strange because it creates a lot of contrast with the culture that is actually Scottish culture. And Scottish culture, it is still a bit sexist, it is still a bit misogynistic, and it is still a bit racist and whatever. But we need to, when you're in a city and you're around all that diversity, it's not quite as there, but yet the people who are loudest about the topics are there. And it just causes more contrast because the people don't want to, you can't just go out to a small town outside Edinburgh and start inflicting your views of being like, you know, anti-homophobe, anti-racist, blah, blah, and all the rest of it, because we're good people and that's what we want. I see it being more like we should be doing more like this, where people who have grown up in that environment, such as myself, has moved into the city, gathered a bit of education and knowledge and education of social environments and diversity and all the rest of it, And then we need to be the people that speak about it, so that people who grow up in those environments hear people speaking in their voice, being like, look, man, I know you're being a wee fucking Raj just now, right? But leave that boy alone. He's just a fucking normal boy like you. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
People do stuff like that. It's so strange, like the contrast between the diversity in Edinburgh City and the lack of it when you leave. It's crazy. Like, there is diversity outside the city, but the division between those cultures and those towns is very...
division. Yeah, because I think it's, I mean, where I live, it's weird because there is actually so many different cultures. You know, we have a lot of Bangladeshi, we've got a lot of Polish, Russian, you know, some Italian, Caribbean, and obviously a large percentage of like African culture.
I don't know how this country is in any way racist or homophobic.
It
we're such a
me
diverse country. It doesn't make any sense that any of us are like that.
But it's, again, that division, though, because unfortunately, I feel like the cultures don't always mix.
No.
You know, and they stay within their own constructs. And then, like, they keep within their circles.
Yeah.
And I think it's weird. It's almost like in the school playground environment where you have you're in the same environment.
This is what I'm realizing, right? This is a human thing. This is what governments are actually supposed to be doing. Governments provide you a land where the cultures are all free to interact with each other and change. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should. I think, like, for example, when I was growing up, and even in Edinburgh now, the Muslim community is very like, the families of Muslim communities feel very separate from what my experience has been growing up. I feel like I've had very little experience to know Muslim people and their families. I've met Muslim people and I've had Muslim friends, but very rarely are you invited into their community to do their community activities with them. It just doesn't happen because it's based around their religion and it's based around their family values, which for a lot of people still in this country, they're still old family values that have come into this country. So for me, like, that's one contrast where I'm like, do you know what though? Maybe I don't need to be part of their culture. Maybe it's about realizing that their culture is separate from mine, and it's about appreciating their culture in the same land that I live in.
Yeah, maybe.
That's how I start to think about it now. It's like, so, okay, right, that's not my culture. That's fine. I can still learn about Islam, and I have learned about Islam. I've read various parts of the Quran, and there's bits from Islam that I take into my life, like I said, with any other religion. But do I need to be part of their community and their events? No. And am I going to judge them because they're not letting me part of it? No. Like, it really just comes down to who that individual person is. And there are people in that community who are letting people into their communities, you know?
Yeah.
But I've realised now that that's something we need to realise, is that people aren't the same.
Yeah.
And our role and I think our job right now is to try and get along as different cultures. Not to try and bring my culture to your culture, not to try and bring your culture to my culture, to be able to just simply recognise the difference and then use that as a starting base for moving forward in the world together.
Yeah, that's very true. I think, that makes a lot of sense. That makes
like,
a lot
think about religions, like, you know, Islam doesn't want to influence Christianity, and Christianity doesn't want to influence Islam, although in their case they kind of do, but you know what I mean? They're still separate entities and they're not going to join and become the same religion. And I think the same thing happens on our day-to-day life in our societies and in our small communities as well. You have people who are just separate, and the whole point is, if you're that kind of person that wants to try and connect those communities, then make an effort, but don't judge people and don't be, you know, putting yourself aside when it doesn't work, because that's how the world is. Humans aren't the same in our communities and our cultures. We've been around for thousands of years. It's impossible for us to be the same.
No, I agree.
That's one of the things I like about street culture, is it brings street culture again, and skateboarding, it brings these people into a more central place. And I think that's what we'll be aiming for in the future, is realizing that, look, you can be from that culture and I can be from that culture and you can be from that culture, but together we can create this new thing that we can all interact with.
Yeah. I mean, because, I think once you find that kind of common ground and respect, you know, I think straight away it creates an environment where you just where you feel like, even if you don't understand or look at the values of views of the other person the same way, you have enough respect to just be like, that's cool. That is that's fine. Do you know what I mean? And I think, like, when you, as you said, when you have like something which you believe in, like, you know, or love for, like streetwear and skating, and it brings people together that maybe usually wouldn't, you know, you're still going to have, like, maybe like situations where, like, you're not going to view things in the same way or understand that person's culture.
Yeah.
But you know, because the construct of it is bigger, it's a relation towards like a you know, a universal love, or a love that, you know, that many people have. You know, you kind of, that's not the focus point.
See, for me, dancing. Dancing is something that, like, I've never really been that into it. I'm a good dancer. I do like to dance, but like, it's just not something I'm pure crazy about. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to catch me on TikTok, you know, doing the dice roll and that.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't like to dance, and it's like, I see people these days like really getting into that, my age, and friends who are like starting to learn these moves and all this kind of stuff. And like, obviously, I get it, it's fun, and people are like missing clubs and all the rest of it and get to dance with people. But for me, it's like, it's not really that big a deal. I'm not really worried. Like, I'll dance and I'll express myself and stuff, but I'm I worried about it being like, I'm not really sucked into the dancing culture yet. I mean, like, maybe I will be. I don't know.
You're still a young man. You don't know what you'll be in 5 years.
No, there's time. I've got hopes and dreams, but who knows?
Exactly. Yeah. Don't limit yourself.
No, that actually, like when we were doing this thing with the idols, me and Miles were talking about, like, you know, we kind of took a second to speak specifically to young people to be like, look, we live in a world where, especially in Scotland, where education is free, right? If you were to leave school at 16 to 18, right, like 4th, 5th, 6th year, whatever year you want to leave school at, people are just chucked straight into an education environment. And I can tell you why. It's because you're used to that environment, and so it's easier for you to go straight into it. But I honestly think that for those people who are really confused and really scared and really don't really want to know what they're doing, get a job and just get a job for a while and take your time. Go and work in a Sainsbury's. It's fine. Do you know what I mean? And if you keep it in your head that, like, I'm not where I want to be, but this is part of my journey while I figure it out, you'll enjoy your time working anywhere, because it's like, it's really all just mentality. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think, especially when education's free, it's like, we shouldn't be rushed into picking all these things. So me and Mel's kind of had this little thing with it, like, you know, speaking to the parents, being like, look, just chill out. It's like, you need to slow down. It's fine. You don't need to go too fast. You don't need to jump into stuff. You don't need to be, you know, you don't need to be dancing on TikTok if you didn't want to be. Just chill out. If you're going to be dancing on TikTok eventually, you'll be dancing on TikTok eventually.
It's true though.
I've been trying to get up to date on TikTok, man, but you know what it is? I'm too introverted a person. TikTok is for people who are either extremely introverted but just love being on camera, or who love being in groups of people making fun videos. And young people, you know, young people love doing that shit together.
No hate, no shade at all. But I think that phase passed me by. I'm just not really. I just don't quite get it. But if that's what people do and they enjoy it for themselves, then
for sure.
Go for it.
I try to like interact with some of these environments. Like, you know, I do a bit of like LinkedIn, and I do a bit of Snapchat, and I do a bit of TikTok. But it's more just because I know that, like, I'm becoming a bit of a face for something, you know. And as much as that's still growing into something, like, that face is going to be there for the kids. And so, like, on a kind of business level now, I have to start considering all these platforms and atmospheres, because they're where my kind of like client base is going to be, really, you know what I mean, or my customer base or whatever. So I do find them quite interesting, but in terms of like using them for amusement, when I open up TikTok and that first video plays and the sound's on, and I'm like, no. I hate opening the app and it's just already in my face, like shouting stuff at me. I'm like, shut up, just try to check a message. But I do like it though. Like, I can see why young people would enjoy it, and I don't think it's going to be a bad thing for them. I think TikTok is probably fucking one of the best social media platforms that's been invented so far, because it encourages movement, it encourages community, and it does, working together.
Yeah, that's true. I've never looked at it that way. Yeah, but you know, as I said, I appreciate anybody just trying to, not even try. I appreciate anybody just, you know, finding different expressive ways of filling their time, and that in itself is a great thing.
Yeah. Here, this is one of my favorite color combinations.
Oi,
cream soda,
candy floss. Yes.
Candy floss with the pink and the cream.
Come on.
See, when you see cream and brown on cans, like when you get like root beer and stuff like that, I'm like, they are the best logos, man. Like cream and brown.
Yes.
Because like, you know, because sweets are so like bright, and when you get like cream and brown, that's those cam colors. You're like, that's not sweetie colors. It's like savory colors.
You want something, when it's sweet, you almost want something really vibrant.
Yeah.
That's why, like, you know, like when you, like the fruit Twizzlers.
Yeah.
in their vibrant pinks and the sugar
Yeah.
coating, and it's like,
Really
yeah,
Here, you don't smoke weed, eh?
nah,
No. So I was in the shop. So I've got this local shop, right? Everyone calls it the hiphop. It's just like literally one of these like small Best Buy corner shops.
yeah.
And the guy that works in there, Mark, right? Me and him, like, we have these crazy conversations. He calls me the prince sometimes, which like makes me feel really nice. But I was in there once, right, and we were talking about some stuff, and we got onto this conversation of like weed and how it affects your like how you take in information around you. And one of the things I said to him is like, sweeties, they're bright, they're colourful, they're punchy, crazy fonts, crazy, like, everything's crazy about sweets because on a subconscious level they're there to suck your attention, very much like a sweet would do when you take the sweet.
Yeah.
But you didn't notice it. You didn't pick up a pack of Cadbury's and go, oh, this packaging looks nice. You say,
true.
oh, this looks nice, as in like
Yeah.
these sweets are going to be good. You don't think about the packaging, but when you're stoned, you consider the packaging, and all of a sudden you're like, why are all these things just like jumping out? Like you go into the store and it's like ping, you see it straight away. You're like, that's not right. But like you have this like little like connection with your subconscious and a thing where you're automatically attracted to it, but because you're stoned, you're like, that doesn't feel right. Why am I doing that? Why are all these colors and all these things sucking me in? Yeah. And it was a really fun conversation, but it was just really interesting to think about colors in that sense, because right now I'm kind of trying to actually cut down and stop smoking. I think in order to do business, in order to be motivated and stuff, it's like smoking really needs to be a once every now and then thing, or if it's medicinal, it needs to be in a scheduled manner.
I mean, only you can know that, but the fact that you're thinking like that kind of tells me that your focus is shifting on something that you believe or value as being more important.
Yeah, I love sweets as well, man. Like, I've got a sweet addiction.
Well, you got to be careful now. Your teeth now.
I know. I'm just hoping I can make enough money I can just replace them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2021, man. Like, we just buy teeth these days.
Yeah, I mean, who needs teeth? You can just buy them in your local corner shop.
Just phone up Cherry Bank Dental and be like, here, look, I need to get some new teeth. Just oil them. Okay, these ones are just shite. I want some new ones. I keep saying, like, I've never bought any gold in my life, but I've got this one tooth that's missing here.
Do you want a gold tooth?
I want a gold tooth. It's the only piece of gold I want to buy, though, if I'm being honest with you. I don't want to buy gold chains and gold bling.
It might become an addiction, Reese. You might be like, I've got one, and then before you know it, your entire face will be a grill.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, there's so many things I would love. Like, see grills as well. Like, there's a few people now. There's a few people now up here starting to get the grills, and I'm like, fuck, I want a fucking grill, man. I've been wanting a grill for fucking years. Like that. I'm determined to kind of. The thing I loved about hip hop was the fact that, like, especially with the colors and their outfits, is like they went to a meeting wearing like their shit. They were like, no, I'm at this meeting because you're here because of me. I'm the talent.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm trying to get myself to that point where, like, I can have a gold grilling, like, nice swaggy clothes and that, really bright colours, walking, like, what's happening, guys? And everyone's just wearing suits. All the lawyers are there and stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right, because hip hop did not apologize for what it was.
No,
hip hop does not apologize for what it is, not what it was, because it is still here. But like hip hop is like, this is my form of expression. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Or like accept it, or if you don't accept it, it doesn't change. So you saying like that, like, I'm sure that if, like Notorious B.I.G. and, like Tupac, if they went into not a recording studio, if they had to go in and they was like, basically like spoken to by a recording company, and there's all these people in suits, they're still going to be them. And I think that takes a lot of
courage, man.
Courage, but it also takes understanding your identity and what you're about.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
It's
funny because I definitely have that with myself now. Like, I'm always the kind of person that's like, I always want to go into an environment and be myself. It doesn't mean I'm going to act myself, like necessarily act the way I do when I'm at home, or, when I feel like my most genuine self. It doesn't mean that's who I'm going to be when I go into a meeting. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm going in there with a purpose. Like, for example, like, say you're going into a meeting and you're about to sign some kind of deal, and it involves money and time scale and deadlines and stuff like that. It's like, you don't want to go and being yourself, being all emotional, having it. Like, I'm a funny guy, so I like to have a bit of fun. Like, I'm not going to go and doing that. I'm in there to make deals. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm in there to think, and I'm in there to kind of, like, you know, stay mindful and be myself, and make sure that everything that happens is for me. And because, but at the same time, it's like, I need to go in and be able to actually deal with the situation. So, and use the tools, you know, like, for example, you know, it took me a long time to kind of get, like, confidence. Like, confidence is a tool. You know, once you learn it, it's something that you can use when you need to use it, but you don't need to be using it all the time. But, you know, I'm quite a nice guy, but if someone, like, says something to piss me off, I'll tell them. Like, I'm not scared to tell them. I'll be like, how fucking dare you say it to me?
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, and it becomes this kind of like when you're aware of that as a tool, you kind of like, again, like I said, it becomes kind of second nature, and you start to use it subconsciously. I think it's just a part of growing up.
Yeah.
But you start to realize that, like, like, all these tools are for different situations and stuff like that. So, like, when I go into a meeting or whatever, I'm going to be myself. But when I'm being myself, I'm always aware of the situation.
That's good. Yeah.
And when someone says something out of line, I'm still myself. But, you know, I feel like when someone says something out of line, it's like the anger inside comes up, but I use my confidence to keep myself calm and tell that person off for what's happened. I don't just, like, jump across the table and hit someone, for example. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the kind of control. I mean, that's the kind of thing you have to have. Like, that's that kind of self-awareness when you go into something like an interview or a meeting. It's like, you know, I've got to be myself, but I need to be able to be aware that when something changes, I don't just, like, regurgitate the words that they want to hear. I'm going to say what I need to say.
For sure.
I always think of myself as being, like, apologetically unapologetic.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
I'm unapologetic, but I'm sorry that I have to be that way.
Yeah.
You're a dick.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You know what, though? I think I've realized is, unfortunately, not everybody. I mean, you know, like, there's still 5 people listening, you know, so that I've seen.
I mean, no, they might watch it later, so I'm not worried.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, make sure you put it on your IGTV. But, like, I think a lot of people still, I think a lot of people struggle with the notion of just being them, because I think being them may mean that some people won't like that, and unfortunately there is a sheep mentality a lot of the time. So being you doesn't always mean being cool. No. You know, and, like, mainstream cool. Like, I don't, like, you know, and I think especially if you're younger, not wanting to stick out for having an opinion which is based on just you. But actually it's much easier just for me to go with the crowd. It's really hard, and I think, like, I find it so important, because, I mean, I'll be honest with you, nobody wants to not be liked. It's not something anybody craves. Like, I don't want to be liked.
Yeah.
But
no, I know.
I don't. But I also can't please people. Can't do it.
You can't do it for everyone. The thing is, like, there has to be an acceptance of the fact that, like, you can't get on with everyone. It's just impossible as a human being. Like, you can, like, I always say to people, like, look, there's people I'm friends with who I don't necessarily like. Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't mean I'm not friends with them, because the reality is, like, I live in a world where some people are just a bit like a dickhead, and, like, it's shite. And but the thing is, it's like, if I'm still friends with that person, they might listen to me, and I might be able to actually, like, influence them, and might be able to stop them being a bit of a dickhead at some point in the future. But if I just instantly disregard that person, you know, it's like, I kind of see it as being like, look, this person, they're maybe not like me, and they're maybe not nice people, but I try and just be like, keep the communication minimum so that there's nothing to, like, upset the relationship. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not saying we're becoming friends, or we're not becoming friends, like, you know, we hate each other. It's just that if you keep the kind of conversation balanced with those kinds of people and not converse with them too much, they'll always still be there, and you'll still always be there for them in a weird way as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you're not going to be close friends with everyone that you know. That's just not how it works. Like, as an adult, fuck, I barely see any of my friends, but they're still my friends. Like, I could message a whole bunch of people who I've not seen for, you know, a couple of years, and I'd still get a response, and they'd still be willing to help me because we're still friends.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think
in a world today where we've got this internet, we know so many people. There's no way I can be in constant communication with people. I'm doing my own stuff, and so, you know, my friend circle changes project to project. My close friend circle, anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean, we haven't spoken in a fair while. But since we spoke again last night,
Yeah.
and it didn't feel any different. Do you know what I mean? I don't feel like awkward, and I'm sure neither do you.
No.
You know, it's fine.
Like there needs to be a thing. Like, you know what it is for me? It's when someone messages me and I've not heard for a long time, and they're like ready for a full blown conversation. This is the thing that I think is like part of like being aware of yourself and being confident. Is like someone's like, say I've not spoken to someone for 2 years, they're messaging me, they're not really asking me anything, they're just trying to have general conversation. Sometimes you need to be able to ignore that for a while and like, look, I know this person's messaging me and reaching out, but they're not like, you know, they're not telling me that they're struggling, they're not being forthright with why they're messaging me, so I need to kind of walk away from it from now and go back to it later because right now I'm kind of busy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I've got this thing now with like text messages and that where like when people message me, I'm like, I'm focused on what I'm doing, and if I'm focused on something, when you're younger, you know, like you're doing something, then you text, then you do this, you do that. I don't think that's an efficient way to think when you're an adult being. When you're an adult human being, it's like you need to be focused on your task. If I'm on my laptop doing my schedule and I've dedicated an hour to doing the schedule, I'll spend that hour doing the schedule. And if it's a very quick, I'll check my notifications. If it's a message I can respond to quickly, I will. But if it's someone writing a big thing or someone I've not spoken to for a long time, I'll see the name and I'll wait because I'm busy. And I've got to get my stuff done. And I think like that's one thing I definitely want younger people to learn is like sometimes you're just busy and it's important to be busy because that's what's going to keep you happy and sane is you doing the stuff you want to do.
Yeah, it's true because you're right. Because especially as a teenager, you're so like obsessed and it's like you're very flighty and everything is
crazy, man. I can't
distracted.
You're like,
you're like anything kind of takes your attention, you know. But yeah, I think that's a good point. I never thought of it that way. Yeah. Bro, we've been doing this now. So what I was thinking is maybe it's been an hour and a half. You know, let's maybe keep it around this margin. Just because I think it'd be kind of good to see, like, you know, what people might say.
Yeah, so maybe let's just quickly recover colour a wee bit real quickly then. Just for anyone who might see it now.
So colour.
Yeah, colour. Do you want to speak a little bit about colour?
Yeah, so if you, so really colour, the importance of colour and what it plays in my life, and actually the therapy, how therapeutic it is that when you visually see certain colors, they can make you feel different. They can invoke different emotions. They can give different perspective. They can cause conversations, and they can make you feel happier on the one side. They can also make you feel lower and calmer, depending on color to color. So for me, using color from what I wear to even like, you know, having quite a lot of plants now with Lucy, to having some artwork that Lucy's mum has made, having certain colors schemes on the walls, it causes different reactions. And for me, that is very important to feel. It's really important for me to feel. So color for me, what is the importance of color for me, and what do I think color is important for in general? Without color, you know, our way of thinking would hugely change. You know, colors all around us. Infusing more color in my wardrobe helps invoke different emotions in me. It also helps uplift me in times of feeling specifically low. And it overall just gives me these bursts of energy and joy, which I feel we all need at times.
Yeah, for sure. I've been thinking about this lately in my room. Like, I've never really been one to decorate a room, but I'm getting to the point now where, like, I'm having to decide, like, what kind of vibe is it I want my bedroom to be? You know, this is the thing that pisses me off. Why are women so good at this? Like, you just go into a room and they're just like, purple. It needs to be purple. We need a silver thing there. We need a wooden thing there. And I'm like, what? Where is this coming from? Like, it's just magic. I have to think about what I'm going to be using the room for, what I'm going to be doing in there. Like, am I going to be sleeping? Am I going to be working?
Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly, like, I think, like, I can say I'm quite lucky. I'm quite expressive of colors and schemes, but ultimately Lucy's been very influential in the decisions that have been made in the flat. Yeah,
she's really colourful as well.
Yeah, and I mean that helps. You know, but I think like, I don't know, because I don't really like say like, oh, women are better at it, but overall I've seen the majority of women that I know just seem to be more confident in it. than
I
men.
just think there's something about how your environment affects you that I think women are just a bit more in tune with than men.
Maybe,
You know,
yeah.
maybe this is this kind of emotional thing we were talking about earlier on. Is like you're affected by these things subconsciously, and I just think women are just a bit more like
You should
it's a bit more in their conscious about that. They're like,
definitely
no, this
get what
wall looks bland, and you're like, why are you like as a man? I'm like, why are you looking at the wall?
it's true. Why do we need these extra cushions? You know, I was like, what's the point of this? You
Yeah.
know, like there's loads of cushions in the living room,
Hey,
and I
they
was
didn't
well
always make the
confused.
best decisions, right? I'm not saying they're the best fucking interior designers, but they'll know how to decorate a room and make it look and feel comfortable and nice.
I think they make it. You know what women have? Well, I hate to say like women, but overall, how I've seen it happen, like since Lucy's come into my life, the flat, well, our flat first of all, but the flat isn't just a place I call like where I sleep. It's a home.
Yeah, home.
You know, and I think maybe a lot of the time women just have a ability to, because when a guy lives on his own, I think it's almost like basic necessities and things that are essential.
Yeah,
And
it's like
that's
I eat and I
fine.
sleep here, and that's it.
Sleep here, and I think a lot of women just have an ability to turn that around and make it a space which is actually enjoyable, and that's so important. So I think, but that doesn't mean that you can't do that before being in a relationship. I think that's where what's really
It also
important.
doesn't mean you can't do it if you're a man or transgender.
No, I mean
or
you can.
whatever,
You know, I mean,
but...
I think there's obviously so many amazing programs out that give you hints and tips, but also like I think this is probably like a good time to get the perspective of a female friend in your life.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, just to kind of not say that your female friend is got to be the one who decides how things should be, but maybe giving you another perspective on things.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
for myself, before I was very much like, I really don't care. I sleep here. I'm comfortable. Look, I've been homeless, so I don't mind.
Yeah,
I've got somewhere to sleep.
That's what
It
went through
means
my head. I'm
nothing.
like, bro, I was like, I've slept on a couch for almost 2 years. I'm fine. I didn't need this.
Now I've got all this extra space. I'm fine.
Yeah, honestly, man, they're all so confusing because you're like, is that just because we've been told to man up, or is it because we are then, or like, fuck knows, man.
It's so much, mate. It's so
like
much.
I want a comfortable environment, but I just don't really. I can't put the fucking effort into achieving that comfortable environment. I mean, my flatmate Angus, he does it well. He's built this whole contraption on his roof and that for holding his clothes. Like that's above his door, right? And
That's
it's on ropes so that he can it's on ropes so they can bring it down, hang all his clothes up, and then pull it back up again.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, it's a fucking.
I wouldn't have thought of that. That's a good way to use the space you're in. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
He was actually talking about moving out. I was like, if you're moving out, I'm moving into your room because he's got all this storage in it. I'm like, this room's class. I'm like, I'm definitely moving in here because the problem with my room is like it's such a weird shape and it's like there's just not. I can't really. There's no really space for me to build something like that in my room. Everything's just a bit of a funny shape. It's kind of like like a Tetris block or something. It's stupid.
No. Yeah.
And again, it's like if it was just a bedroom, fine. But I'm trying to kind of do work in my room as well, and that's another hard thing when you have like a bedroom / office.
Yes.
Hard situation. It's been good chatting to you though, bro.
It's been amazing. It's been awesome. It's been so good to catch up with you, Reese.
Yeah, man.
I really enjoyed this. I definitely let's try and sort something out again. I'd love to see who else you're going to speak to. I'll definitely be following what else is happening.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Guys, I know the 5 people, please show love to obviously what we've been chatting about if you enjoyed it. And also please show my friend Reese some love because I think, genuinely he's a compassionate, caring and just real individual. And, as I said, I appreciate this and I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
It's so I'll speak to you after because it's so. I'll speak to you as class, but yeah, no, it's been really good. Again, for anyone listening, go follow Micheal and stuff as well. Colourful Tuesdays, I'll give you a message about this as well because I'd be keen to see what you're doing for that as well. Because I'm starting to get myself into this routine of being like, when I've made a video and I've enjoyed it, I actually write it down on my whiteboard, being like, on Tuesday I did this to try and kind of hopefully I'm going to do the same thing next week and that as well. Yeah.
It's been a nice routine for me. So that's Colourful Tuesdays. I do every Tuesday, and then evenings I do something called Kicks and Vibes with myself and Nick, and it's literally talking about streetwear, vintage, kicks, and lockdown life. and that's at 7 p.m. every Tuesday. And
Lockdown
that's with
life.
one of the guys who was in here called N Martin .psd. His
Yeah, I
name's
seen
Nick.
that.
He really cool dude. So yeah, me and him do that every Tuesday. But it's just, you know what? Just trying to find things to do that keep me entertained and happy, and maybe create some content that other people might find interesting.
Yeah,
A bit
yeah.
like what you're doing, bro. A bit like what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to end this just now. Are you busy after this, or do you want to have another do you want to have like a private conversation afterwards, or what?
I can do.
I'll end this just now, and I'll message you.
All right, go on.
Yeah, thanks for everyone who's tuned in and stuff. I'll put it
you.
on Instagram TV. It'll be on YouTube. Michael,
Thank you.
absolute pleasure, bro.
Thank you, bro. See you
Thanks,
later.
man.
Bye.